for the Together for Tomorrow capital campaign, a capital campaign that on the one hand would support a number of conference concerns such as camps and conferences and pensions and new church starts, but also would allow churches to raise funds for their own needs. And we were able to have a very successful capital campaign that has allowed us to address many issues that our aging church building has had. So we've been able to replace the church steeple a few years back, a steeple that had been leaking for many years and that we just couldn't seem to correct the problem with. We've been able to add just recently a new ramp and side entrance that makes the church more fully accessible to all people, and we do see an increase in people who are in wheelchairs and using walkers and canes who are able to use the church now because of that, and to add a handicap accessible bathroom. So I'm I think proudest of our ability to raise the funds and to do the work that has needed to be done. I think the church is in a good place, although there's always more work that needs to be done.
What has been most challenging?
Well, I think on a personal level, what is most challenging is over the course of 16 years to sort of rejuvenate oneself in order to bring the kind of energy that a congregation needs in terms of pastoral leadership. Very early on in my time here, I had the opportunity to sit down with one of our former pastors, Reverend Russ Pepe, who had been here at the church for 17 years. And I had asked Russ, you know, how did you do it? I couldn't at that time imagine ever being pastor of a church for that many years. And he shared with me a number of things that I think were important. And one of them was the fact that over the course of that many years, the congregation itself changes 2 or 3 times. And I think one of the things that I've seen too is that although there are many folks who've been here for the entire 16 years I've been here, a lot of people have changed as people have come and gone. And the combination of those changes and just trying day to day to experience the renewal of energy that one needs, it's made the 16 years here not only possible, but to be really fruitful years as well. And I'm very grateful that that has been the case.
What do you think has been the most challenging thing for the church?
I think probably the most challenging thing for the church has been to constantly have to address financial needs over the course of time. To want, on the one hand, to be a church that has adequate staff, that provides adequate programs to the needs of the people in the community, but always seeming to struggle with being able to pay for all of that. And of course, in the years 2008, 2009, 2010, our country has gone through an economic crisis, and we've experienced the effects of that as well. And so constantly have to balance who we want to be as a congregation with some of the financial realities that we've had to live with. On the one hand, always challenging ourselves to be more faithful stewards in terms of our financial resources, but also at times just having to recognize the reality that we couldn't have it all, even though we might have wanted to. And so we've had to, at times, make cuts in terms of staff, cuts in terms of programs. But overall, I think we've done well in maintaining a healthy commitment to staff and programs and to the church building while using the resources we've had in a faithful way also.
What do you think is special about our church?
I mentioned the word resiliency earlier, and I think in many ways that is one of the things that is special about this congregation. over the course of its history, and especially in the last 20 years, there have been some challenges that have required resiliency. When there were issues with the previous pastor that left many feeling let down by him, and feeling challenged by a sense of their trust being both violated and in many ways broken. They could easily at that point in time have said, well, that's it, I just don't want to have anything to do with church anymore. But people were able to look beyond that one issue and that one person and maintain their commitment to God and their commitment to the church and its mission. And I think that resiliency that was shown at that time was truly important. And I think that was seen also when we became a reconciling congregation. Not everyone in the church still to this day would say that that's what they wanted for the church, but they understood that there are times when we have to put aside our own individual feelings about things, and for the good of the congregation as a whole, do what is best and what the majority of the congregation are looking to do. And so people did that, and I think that ability to do that has been really important to who we are as a church, and who we hope to continue to be. And I think as a whole, it's a church that is very open to others. I think we see that in a large degree by the use of our building. We are a church that does not feel that the building is ours exclusively, but the building really belongs to the whole community. And although obviously we don't just leave the doors open at night and say everybody who wants to come in, we do govern that in some ways, but there's rarely a time that the church is not being used both by people within the church, but also by members of the community in terms of scouts and AA and Al-Anon and other recovery groups, and meals that are provided for senior citizens and the Rotary Club and other groups as well. And I've always really appreciated the fact that this congregation utilizes its building in a way that I think makes us more faithful stewards of what God has given us, and that I think makes us special as well.
How has our congregation changed during your time here?
I think if there's one thing I would say about congregations is that who they are, their DNA, is usually already been established long before any particular pastor arrives. And I'd say who this congregation is, its DNA, was long in place before I came. And although I might have hoped to make changes, I realize now after 16 years that the congregation's pretty much who I've always known them to be. Fortunately, that's pretty good, because there haven't been significant changes that have needed to be made. Probably the one area that we've had to work on maybe a little bit more is being a congregation that is welcoming in every sense of the word. Not just in terms of letting people use our building, not just in the terms of having handicap accessibility or being a reconciling congregation, but day in and day out to treat everyone who comes through the door as family and as somebody who belongs here and whose needs are worthy of our attention. And we've had, I think, to work hard at times to reach that place, but I think we've come a long way, and that one could say that the church is truly a welcoming church, a welcoming congregation, where each person, if they give it time, will find that they are valued and that they are definitely welcome.
When has it been fun?
There have been many times when it's been fun, but I guess when I think of that word, I have to think of one person in particular, and that's Gladys Chapman. Gladys was our previous director of Christian education, and she was in that position for about 10 years. And as a person, Gladys is just somebody who enjoys laughter and fun, and brought that spirit to the church pretty much every day when she came to work. And so there were just lots of things that gave us cause for laughter. Let me just share one story that I'll always remember humorously. For those who know the name of Gladys Chapman, Gladys loved to cook and would oftentimes do some cooking while she was doing other things here at the church. And one day she put some eggs in a pot to let them boil and forgot that they were boiling. And so when all the water boiled out, the eggs just started exploding and going all over the kitchen, creating this incredible mess. We had a lot of laughter about that, even though I'm sure Gladys would have hoped that she would remember not to leave the boiling eggs for too long in the future. But those kinds of things, some intended, some unintended, were what made the church a fun place to be. But there are lots of other ways. Our Christmas concerts always seem to provide some fun, including the year when Frosty the Snowman showed up and visited amongst the people and those who were performing on that night. And to this day, I'm sure there are a few people who still don't know who Frosty the Snowman was. And so I guess I should say, yes, I was Frosty the Snowman.
Share some memorable moments from your time here.
Oh, memorable moments. There were personal memorable moments. The year I turned 50 and the congregation had a surprise 50th birthday party after church on Sunday. That was very memorable for me. A cake that I never actually saw because by the time I got out to the fellowship hall it was all eaten, but I do have a picture of it. No, I'm not holding that against anyone. Also, in that same year, when on a Saturday afternoon and during one of our Saturday afternoon worship services, we gathered to celebrate my 20th year in ministry, and my good friend and colleague, Reverend Sam Johnson, came and preached, and unbeknownst to me, family and friends from throughout the course of my life were invited to come, and my mother, who was living in North Carolina at the time, showed up unbeknownst to me, and childhood friends came. It was just a really incredibly special time for me, and I'll always appreciate that. One of the things that I hold dear are the years in which I was able to go on the youth mission trips. I was 50 at the time I went on my first youth mission trip, and I wouldn't recommend anyone wait quite that long to do it. But I'm really grateful that I did, and I think for 5 years I went with the kids on mission trips, and I really valued those opportunities to be with our kids because you really get to know them well when you're at least with the boys sleeping on the floor of some church not too far from each other, and having to put up with each other for the whole week, riding in vans as a group for hours on end. But I just hold many fond memories of those trips, and I'm grateful for the kids who went on them, grateful for the experiences that we had together, for the opportunities to grow spiritually. I know I always came back from the trips sort of fired up spiritually from the time that we had together, even though sometimes I was coming to church the next morning after having arrived, at least on one occasion, back about midnight the night before. But I still felt fired up after having had a wonderful week together.